Hey, and welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR. We are presented and brought to you by FanDuel. We appreciate you being here as we are going to get into our Big Ten football power rankings following Week 10 in the Big Ten. It's November football time, which means it is some of the most important time of college football, and we're excited to be here talking about it all with you guys. We are live, and so we're going to be bringing up some comments and stuff, especially since Zach could not make it tonight. He was originally planning on being here, but because of some 4 a.m. smoking of the brisket that he had to do, he is a little bit of a sleepy Zach tonight. So we're going to give sleepy Zach the night off and get into these power rankings of the Big Ten that I have here next to me. Let's see who's here joining me. Max, as always. Max, appreciate you being here. He says Paul Fraudbaum better start applying for his work visa now if he's going to keep his word and leave the country once the championship game is over. I think he's already planning to have his excuse, right? Of like, I'm staying because I am running for Senate or whatever. Like, I'm getting into politics, so I'm going to stay. Okay, great. Let's put a guy into politics who just threatened to leave the country if his football team doesn't win, a few months ago. That sounds great. Appreciate you being here, Max. Philip with the ILL, INI, great win for Illinois today. That was awesome. Philip says if Raiola doesn't get hurt, Nebraska beats USC. Maybe. I mean, it still was not like Nebraska's offense was humming by any means, but I do think you would have had better decision making back there. Not that TJ Latif was necessarily bad. I think he did kind of what you would expect for a young backup quarterback. I believe he's freshman to do, but that was just a really, really difficult spot. So tough right now for Nebraska fans for sure. And I kind of had the same question a little bit there, Philip. I wouldn't say for sure that's the case, but I kind of thought through the same thing, and that's why I didn't move Nebraska here in my power rankings. I actually just kept them in the same spot after winning that one. So excuse me. Let's see. Max says, Philip, if you guys go 9-3, where do you think to end up? Oh, he's talking to Philip. Sleepy Zach needs his rest. Philip thinks that Illinois gets hopefully to a New Year's Bowl if they go 9-3. I mean, yeah, I think it'd be similar to last year. Like if they go 9-3, they're not going to really be in the hunt for the playoffs because pretty much all of their losses were, well, yeah, I mean, Ohio State was a blowout. Indiana was a blowout. Yeah, Washington. I mean, I think if Illinois is 9-3 and all of those losses are close, they have a chance at the playoffs. But considering all of those were blowouts, I think you could excuse away kind of the Indiana one. I think that you can make an argument that the Ohio State one was kind of closer than maybe the scoreboard indicated, but that Washington one, there's not really much you can say about that one. Maybe if it happened to Oregon and it was a close one, you could say something. But yeah, I tend to agree with you there, Philip. So um James says IU looks better than OSU. I I do not think so. We'll start there at the top of the power rankings. James, appreciate you being here. Um, I think both Ohio State and IU both struggled at times today, right? IU kind of struggled at the beginning of the game, but their defense locked up, and Ohio State they gave up one drive to Penn State to start the second quarter. They responded with a drive of their own, and then a fumble by the running back, which was just totally inexcusable, and then Penn State capitalizes and scores there at the end of the second quarter, but then they really never were able to move the ball after that. They got into the red zone there at the end of the game, but I mean, I think Ohio State completely shut down and destroyed Penn State, just like Indiana did after the beginning of the game when Fernando Mendoza throws the interception. So honestly, I was impressed by both teams today. I'm not really different on either team. I'm not really different between the relationship of the two of them. If you want to argue resume, Indiana, like I've said the entire time, has the better resume. So it just kind of depends on how you do your power rankings. If you go by who you think the better team is, I give a slight edge to Ohio State right now, but it continues to be 1A, 1B for me, and it's going to be very, very difficult picking who wins that game in the Big Ten championship because they both look awesome. The running game of Indiana was fantastic today. Roman Himby, Kalen Black, Kobe Martin all had 80 plus yards on the day. And in a day where Fernando Mendoza wasn't his best and you didn't have Elijah Surratt pretty much the entire game, I think he went out after that first drive and never came back. You still dominated another Big Ten team on the road. So Ohio State went up against a more talented team in Penn State that Yes, they're not playing well right now, but they're still more talented and completely dominated them, for pretty much the entirety of the game. I know the second quarter got there a little bit. I would say that the scoreboard was a little misleading if you want to say that, it was a close game because it never really felt like Penn State was in it. Kind of like the scoreboard is a little misleading there with Indiana. About halfway through the second quarter, I believe it was 10-3 at that time. So, you know, like I said, both teams kind of went through it. So, James says, feel like we will see if IU is better than OSU next week by how they perform against Penn State. I mean, at this point, it's going to take something super drastic for me to kind of change my opinion, right? At this point, I think unless something completely drastic changes where like the two just, completely Ohio State just completely lays an egg and almost loses and Indiana blows the team out, I might switch them. But at this point, like I said, it's just Big Ten championship game. We'll see who the winner is because it looks like both those teams are on their way there. Anybody saying that Ohio State is definitively better than IU doesn't know what they're talking about. Anybody that says that IU is definitively better than Ohio State doesn't know what they're talking about. It is what it is. Both teams are really, really good, and both teams look like the two best teams in the nation right now. So, yeah. Let's see. Philip says Saban said something smart. Dumbass kept saying on the scout team last year. I never understood the comment because he was with his team for like a week and he never had the opportunity to play. So how's he on your scout team if he never had the opportunity to play? I did not see the comment live. I just saw it after the fact, and I was like, dude, he was on your team for like a week, and then you retired. So how was he? I don't get it. I guess he was there for like the playoff prep or something. Yeah, I don't know. So, oh well, it is what it is. All right, let's continue to go through the power rankings. I'll get to you guys' comments here at the end. Oregon, I have at number 3. No change there. They didn't play this week. I'm going to keep them there. Iowa, I did bump up to number 4. So Michigan, I had kind of holding on to number 4 because I'm kind of giving them some grace for like road game stuff and things like that. Because every Big Ten team has struggled on the road at some point this season. Iowa struggled against Iowa State. USC struggled against Illinois. Washington struggled on the road against Michigan. Illinois struggled on the road against Washington. Like all of these teams, and Indiana, like all of these teams have struggled on the road at some point. So I wasn't necessarily going to move a team down just because they struggled on the road. Michigan today struggled at home bad. And the injuries right now are mounting up for Michigan as well. Donovan McCauley, Jayshon Barham, Justice Haynes is out. Excuse me, the offensive line continues to be banged up. Honestly, if Bryce Underwood came out and looked really good in this game, I probably would have felt better about Michigan, and I probably would have given him some more leeway. But Bryce Underwood did not look great in this one. I don't have the stat line in front of me. I guess I could pull it up here. But 13 of 22, 145 yards, one interception, like no touchdown pass or anything. He did rush in this game. What do you have? 7 carries for 44 yards. But I mean, it's kind of like this is the Michigan team we've known with a really good running game, but less talent around them because guys are going down with injury right now. So I moved Michigan down quite a bit. I have them at number 8 in my power rankings here, just because with the injuries, I don't fully trust them. And when you don't come out and blow Purdue out at home, I don't fully trust you right now either. Do I think that Michigan's going to stay there? No, I think they're a better team than 8th in the Big Ten, but as for right now with the injuries and everything else, and this is how power rankings are supposed to work, right? It's supposed to be where would you pick this team if what you know about them tomorrow based on injuries and everything else, where would you put them? And I have Michigan right there at number 8. So that's where I'm going to keep them for now. We'll see what happens. USC, I moved up to number 5, just one spot because Michigan moved down. I felt like that was needed based off USC winning here on the road and doing a really good job of running the ball. Jada Maiava probably had one of his worst games of his career in this one, but it was a gritty performance by him to be being able to run the ball well and still get the ball to his playmakers. I was really impressed with USC in that one. Even though Dylan Raiola went out, I was impressed with USC being able to come out with the win in that game. Washington, number 6. I mean, I think Washington kind of is in that boat with Michigan where they struggle on the road, but they do really well at home. And I think that they are just kind of continuing to prove that. So that's why I have them over Michigan right now. Illinois, kind of the same thing. I know they didn't beat Ohio State at home, but they do play much better at home. They kind of struggled on the road a little bit. And honestly, I thought about moving Illinois up. I just felt it was too early after that blowout loss to Washington. But the defense looked much better today, much more in passing lanes. They were getting some more pressure on Ethan Kaliak-Manis. I still think they could do a little bit better with their pass rush, but Gabe Yakus, he was excellent in that game. I think he had 2 sacks, 2.5 tackles for loss. So great job by him, and the pass rush looked better. Michigan, like I said, I have them at number 8. Kind of talked about them. Minnesota, I didn't feel the need to move up. They started out really well in that game. They were up like 14-0 on Michigan State, or 13-0, whatever it was. But they were up really, really good on Michigan State early on. They got to a fast start, just like PJ Fleck talked about, and they forked it away in the second half. And I was like, what in the world is going on? No, 10-0. That's right. They was like, what in the world is going on? And eventually they came back. Good gritty performance by them in the second half to come back, force overtime, and win it there. But I would have liked to see a more complete game put together by Minnesota against a bad team in Michigan State. So I kind of felt like they had a similar performance to Michigan, and I wasn't going to move them up over Michigan based on a similar, not exactly the same, similar performance. Michigan was still more dominant in their one, so I'm going to give them the praise there, or the higher seed there. And then Nebraska, I kept them at 10th. I mean, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with Nebraska at this point. They beat Northwestern. You could argue Northwestern was the better team in that game. I don't think overall they were, but you could argue that. And Nebraska doesn't have Dylan Raiola. So part of me honestly thought about moving Nebraska down below Northwestern, because I did move Michigan down because of their injuries. But I also didn't think TJ Lateef was the worst thing in the world in the game. He looked like a quarterback who was coming in, who was a backup and young, and that's kind of what you get. Still think he's better than Preston Stone for Northwestern. So, I can see I can see arguing to move them up over Nebraska, but I'd like to see Northwestern get a bigger win before they do that. So, Philip says Minnesota needed overtime to beat Michigan State. I would drop Minnesota 2 spots. Yeah, I mean, if I did that, though, I'd be dropping them behind Nebraska, who they absolutely throttled in that game, So, which, Illinois beat USC, and I have them under them, so it's not like the most exact science in the world. But I can tell you right now, if Nebraska had beat USC, I would have moved Nebraska up over Michigan. So, it's kind of an interesting way of looking at it. I guess I could have moved Northwestern up over Minnesota. That's a good point, Philip. I could have done that. Point is, pretty much like spot 9 through, I would say 9 through 10. That's a really, or not 9 through 10. Sorry, 9 through 13. You could put those a lot of different ways. You could have Northwestern there at the top. You could have Penn State up there at the top with some of the ways they've looked. Probably not, since they lost to both UCLA and Northwestern. But yeah, that kind of 9 through 13 spot there is really interesting. So the way I have it right now, and I am conceding a bit here to Philip, that based on how they looked this week, you could possibly put Minnesota down a few. But the way I have it right now is Minnesota 9, Nebraska 10, Northwestern 11, UCLA 12, Penn State 13. And I know other people have Penn State higher than me, but you can't keep losing game after game after game in the Big Ten and be up there. So it's a lot to expect them to beat Ohio State, but you had Iowa. You had Iowa. You could have beat Iowa in that game, but you didn't. Iowa was the better coach team, and they executed better. So, hey, Steely Matt, thank you for reposting the show on Twitter/X. Appreciate you doing that. If anybody else would like to do that, who's watching on Twitter, X, whatever it's called, over there, we would appreciate you doing so. Really helps out the channel, and obviously liking and subscribing on YouTube. If you would, please do like, subscribe, do all that good stuff as well. These Big Ten Power Ranking shows always seem to do pretty well, and we appreciate you guys watching them, and we do stay up a little bit later to do them for you. So if you would like and subscribe, we definitely appreciate that. So Philip says that Penn State needs to worry about bowl eligibility. Yeah, I mean, they're 3-5 right now. You have Indiana next week. I feel very confident that Indiana is going to win that game, even though it's at Penn State. I shouldn't say very confident. I feel confident Indiana is going to win that game. And then you have Michigan State, Nebraska, Rutgers. You get Nebraska at home, maybe like that. That's a good opportunity there. But then you have to go to Michigan State. I think they probably go to Michigan State and get the win, and then you have at Rutgers. So yeah, I mean they're probably going to lose to Indiana, and then win those last three. They definitely can. They have the more talented team in all of those, but you know, it's it's rough out there for Penn State. We'll see if they get bowl eligible. And then the last five I have, and honestly, as long as you have Wisconsin last year, I don't really think you're wrong. I mean, no, I shouldn't say that. Maryland needs to be up there. Maryland needs to probably be right behind number 13. So Maryland at 14, 15 Rutgers, 16 Michigan State, 17 Purdue, 18 Wisconsin. You could definitely argue Purdue deserved to move up, but Michigan State also gave Minnesota a good game. So, you know, and that one was on, well, they were both on the road. Um, so and Rutgers was on the road too. They lost in a blowout. I guess you probably move Rutgers down, but Rutgers has a Big Ten win. So what do you want to do? It's a interesting situation. So that's my power rankings, the way I got them. I'll go through the chat with you guys a little bit, kind of talk to you there, and then I'm gonna hop off here because I still have to do my performance ratings and everything else too. We'll have that video out for you guys probably later tonight or tomorrow morning. Just depends. Loxley, Philip says fire Loxley time. Like I said, I think if he wins one more game, he's fine. Need to look at their schedule again. If they don't win another game though, and they finish 4-8, I think he's gone. So they have at Rutgers, at Illinois, Michigan, Michigan State. They will probably win either at Rutgers or Michigan State. They will probably win one of those. They should win one of those. So. Roger says Maryland's defense is legit. I mean, turnovers and sacks this year are the best in the country. I mean, they are really legit on the defensive side. They do a great job. They obviously picked off Mendoza, and that was a really good play by Glasgow, I think it was, that got the interception in that one. So yeah, I mean, Maryland has a better defense. I've been kind of propping up their defense all season long. And hey, I felt a little vindicated when I did that. Can Maryland's offensive line stop Indiana's defensive line? I had a lot of Indiana fans that said, "No, JR, you're crazy," and I get it. Indiana's been dominant, but I mean, Maryland's offensive line, not so much in run blocking, but in pass blocking, they did a pretty good job in that one against a really, really good front that Indiana has. So that was interesting. So Steely Matt says Buckeyes looked sharp. Sayin played fantastic. Yeah, I'm gonna put out a video of Sayin. And is most likely gonna win the Heisman this season. I think, at least right now. Heisman, Mendoza obviously still in the race. I think they're still the top two up there, especially with Ty Simpson not playing this week. But yeah, I mean those two are gonna be the top two up there. And I think right now, as it stands right now, Julian Sayin has the edge. But it's all gonna depend on who wins the Big Ten championship. In my mind, whoever wins that one. So if you're on FanDuel and you want to make a bet, I've been screaming this bet, but Julian Sayin right now is plus 195. Those odds were down to plus 160 at one point, but Julian Sayin was at plus 195 right now. Fernando Mendoza at plus 230. Ty Simpson at plus 340, and the next highest is Marcel Reed at plus 750. So really, this Heisman race is down to 3. Diego Pavia is at plus 3,000 now. Sorry, Diego. Don't lose to Texas, who everybody says is bad. Apparently, not a good win for Ohio State. But Julian Sayin might win the Heisman with the offense that is calling the least amount of plays in the country right now. Going into this, I'll have to check what the plays are after this week. But going into this week, Ohio State ran the least amount of offensive plays in the country. If you go to team rankings, they were like 123 out of 136, but that was not against FCS teams. If you include FCS teams, Ohio State has been running the least amount of plays in the country at this point. And to think that Julian Sayin is still up there in the Heisman odds, like that's pretty insane. So, yeah, if I were you and you think Indiana is going to win the Big Ten, which Indiana has good odds, they are plus 145. So they're still plus, but they have a good opportunity there. Ohio State is minus 155 to win the Big Ten on FanDuel. I would just parlay that with whoever you have to win the Heisman. I think if you think Fernando Mendoza is going to win the Heisman, parlay that with Indiana going to win the Big Ten championship. Same thing with Ohio State and Julian saying, I wish I had like another parlay in there for you guys to put it together. I really don't. Not right now. It's Saturday, so there's not as many odds out as there has been, but you know, you can go bet on that Tennessee Oklahoma game. That one's still out there. I don't know what's going to happen in that one. Oklahoma's favored to win it by 1.5 because they're up by 2 right now. So interesting. All right, I spent a lot of time on the Mendoza stuff. Philip says SEC is trash. Yeah, what do you know? Ari Wasserman was tweeting out there, hey, maybe it's time we have a conversation about the SEC. Yeah, Ari, maybe it is. Maybe it is. He was on Doug Lesmerise's show, which, by the way, Doug Lesmerise does a good job helping fight the fight. Actually, he's like leading the fight against the SEC in a lot of ways. He does a great job. And Ari was like, yeah, I think maybe we need to change this conversation. It's like, yeah, you talked to Doug for 5 minutes and he convinced you, because it's very easy to convince people once they get out of the SEC bubble and just look at the way everything is. And yeah, the ACC is a dumpster fire. We all know this. Miami loses today. They suck. Well, they don't suck, but they suck today. I mean, they're still a good team, but they're not gonna make the playoffs. Who else lost today? Georgia almost lost. Man, I was I was hoping Florida would get there for me, but that didn't work out. Let's see. Anybody lose? Georgia almost lost. Ole Miss beat South Carolina. That one was close. Oh, Georgia Tech lost. There you go. Penn State fans. Brent Key going to be interviewing next week. He might not be in the playoffs. Haynes King. Man, Haynes King is such an underrated Heisman guy. If I were voting for the Heisman, I would vote for Haynes King over Diego Pavia 10 times out of 7. Or 7 times out of 10. Whatever. 9 times out of 10. Whatever the phrase is. I would vote for him a lot. Yes, thank you, Max. Georgia Tech lost. So, that's Notre Dame almost lost 25-10. Yeah, these are some of the games that I'll be watching tomorrow after it all happens. Houston lost. That's no surprise. They were never good. Virginia, they went to Cal and got the win. That's a little impressive because of the travel, but still, like it's Cal. You know, you should be beating Cal. So Joe says happy 40th birthday to Diego Pavia. Yeah, I do not want, like, if I was a Penn State fan, I would not want Clark Lee to be my head coach. Like, the dude is at Vanderbilt, which is the same place James Franklin was at. He needs a 25-year-old quarterback, and he cannot control his players. Like, how can you be a good head coach and you have your player out there talking like that? Like, I am for players talking some trash here and there, but the amount of nonsense that Diego Pavia is putting out there right now, it's just insane. And Clark Lee just lets him do it. Like, you got to rein in your guys. Like, you're Vanderbilt. You're not Alabama. You're Vanderbilt. But it is what it is. Roger said Notre Dame didn't look great today, but they're still scary. Yeah, I mean, this is the Marcus Freeman special, right? Like, this is what made losing the 2 games at the beginning of the year so scary for Notre Dame. Is like, okay, you should win the rest of these games, but you're also Marcus Freeman, and you lose like one that you shouldn't lose. Northern Illinois, Marshall, right? Like, you lose these games. Don't do it again. So as long as they can make it through and not lose, they'll be fine, but that's a tall task. They still have Navy, at Pitt, Syracuse, and at Stanford. That at Pitt game is going to be interesting. Did Pitt play today? They beat Stanford. Yeah. But did that happen today or did that happen last week? I'm getting it mixed up now. Let me go to the ACC. They beat Stanford today. Okay, that's what I thought. Stanford on the road. And Florida State, 4-4. Florida State. Congratulations. Alabama, you did not your loss early on in the season finally got an ACC win. Congratulations. All right. Christopher, thanks for being here, Christopher. Don't think I've seen you before, but we appreciate you being here. Do you think USC has a chance at Oregon? Oh yeah, USC has a chance. With that offense and how good they are, and being a game that's on the West Coast, oh yeah, USC has a chance against Oregon. Oregon has an impressive secondary, but they're still young. I think that you definitely have a chance there, especially if you're able to run the ball and you're able to kind of contain Washington and Bear Alexander. Bear Alexander's been playing better lately. But Richard said Dude, it's always Ohio State and Michigan in the conference in the past. You all better be thankful Oregon, Washington, USC are in it now. Better competition. I have said that, Richard. Yeah, I have said that. Said that multiple times on this show is that USC, Washington, and Oregon are elevating this conference. And I said this conference would not be better than the SEC without those three teams. I think UCLA can get their act together with a new head coach, but I think that all three of those teams are elevating the conference. So yeah, I love it. I love it. So I'm kind of losing you guys in the chat. It's hard when I'm here by myself. So David says he's not yet convinced Oregon is all that. We will see when they play Iowa. Yeah, it's really underrated the stretch here that Oregon has to end the season. They have Iowa at Iowa and Kinnick. You better believe that those Iowa fans that are going to be sitting behind the bench have like researched Dante Moore's girlfriend and everything to like scream at him because that's that's kind of what the Iowa fans do at Kinnick. They're pretty crazy. Yeah, they have at Iowa, Minnesota, USC, at Washington. So if the USC game was at USC, I would feel better about USC. But it is at Oregon. But I don't think they're as bad on the road on the West Coast as they are on the road other places. Which shout out to Lincoln Riley. They got a second win across 2 time zones in the Big Ten. I think he's 2-7 now. Which actually, like, if we need to have a talk. USC might be one of the better, like, top half of the Big Ten teams on the road in the Big Ten. Michigan, like, unless Biff Poggi is your coach, has not been good on the road. They beat Nebraska, but that was also with Biff Poggi as their coach. And I think they looked better with Biff Poggi as their coach than elsewhere. Excuse me. Illinois looked bad against Washington and looked bad against Indiana. Washington looked bad against Michigan on the road. They looked bad against Maryland on the road for most of the game, but they eventually pulled it out in the fourth quarter. Credit to them, but I need to see you put together an entire game. USC lost close to Illinois, and that one, I don't think they looked bad. I just think Illinois looked better. Obviously, they won the game, and then they lost to Notre Dame on the road, who is another top 12, top 10 team. I forget what they're ranked in the AP poll right now. So USC might be one of the better teams on the road in the Big Ten than we give credit for. Obviously, Indiana, Ohio State on the road, very good. Oregon, we haven't really seen them on. Well, we saw them play Rutgers on the road, but this Iowa game will be a huge game for them to play on the road. First, like, big time opponent here in a while. So, we'll see how it works out. But yeah, I think people don't give USC enough credit for how they've been on the road this season. Other teams have gone on the road and gotten smacked. Washington, Michigan, against Oklahoma, not against Nebraska. I know. Illinois, they've gone on the road and got smacked. USC, they haven't gotten smacked on the road. They've played close, good games. So, Roger says, I think Oregon better be ready for Iowa's line of scrimmage. Oh, yeah. It's going to be a line of scrimmage battle in that game. Line of scrimmage battle. Joe says, IU looks unstoppable even with Surratt and Fisher out. They pants Maryland. Yeah, that's going to be I'm going to put out a video on JR's Big Ten Football News, which, by the way, go subscribe to JR's Big Ten Football News. I'm doing, like, shorter videos and stuff over there. But I'm going to put out one on there, and that's basically what I'm going to talk about the entire time is that Indiana smacked Maryland on the road, even without Mendoza looking great. Surratt played most of the game. Aiden Fisher out. Like, even with some of these star players out, they just leaned on their run game and absolutely destroyed Maryland. Yeah, eight starters out today. Yeah, I mean, absolutely destroyed them. Yeah, and that's not even mentioning the offensive line. Like, you had Zim Mikulski in there for Drew Evans. Khalil Benson went out for a little bit. I think he came back, though, in that one. Yeah, man, like I talked about Indiana's depth last week with Isaiah Jones coming in and being the green dot. We're going to have to talk about Indiana's depth again, but not just their depth, like their ability to still smack a team, right? Like Maryland gave Michigan a good game in 2023 when they won the national championship. They gave Ohio State really good games in back-to-back years in 2019 and 2018. So, like, that's what has been kind of the problem with Maryland is, like, they do get up for some of these bigger games, but then they falter against some of these opponents that they should beat. So, I mean, they shouldn't beat Indiana. Indiana should beat them. But Indiana should have struggled in that game with all their starters out and Maryland playing the way they were in some of the areas. But very opportunistic, situational football, got the turnovers, ran the ball really well, and stopped the run, What do you do on the road to win? You run the ball, you stop the run. So very good, very good. IU. Oh, we'll get to that in a second. Hold on, David. IU is really destroying Bud Elliott's blue chip ratio theory. Monthly Short says, yeah, I mean, but that theory was going to get destroyed eventually, right? Like that theory has worked really well with recruiting being straight up recruits, but the transfer portal kind of has ruined that with how much that is done. And then obviously, like some of these Big Ten teams having more time to develop players and bring in transfers to fill holes was going to help with that. And then obviously, Kirk Cincinnati, he's the one, like you said, he's just leading the charge, destroying that blue chip ratio. I don't think it's like, I don't think that Bud Elliott should get clowned for that because I do think it was a really interesting stat while it lasted. But I just don't think it's a stat that you can really keep referencing in the new age of college football with the transfer portal the way it is, with coaches being able to develop talent and coaches being much more savvy nowadays to find 3 stars that are actually more like 4 stars, right? You go into the recruiting services and the way that they rate a lot of these guys is they have to go to camps. But there are a ton of players who don't go to a ton of camps, and there are a ton of players who like these and I think Signetti does this. I don't know for sure, but I'm sure he does with how well he does recruiting and stuff and bringing in good players. But like a lot of these coaches will go in and look at like the physical structure of the parent and say, okay, this kid is going to end up like that parent at some point. So I got to bring this kid in. Maybe they're not the best physical structure right now. Maybe they're a 2-star, 3-star, but bring them in and they're going to turn into something really, really amazing. And it's not just that. I mean, Signetti has elite coaching for himself, his assistant coaches, his coordinators, like it's all elite. And you do that with the financial backing of Indiana, which is really impressive right now. So, all right. Last one. Well, I'll check one more time, but this is one of the last ones. David says, Iowa versus Oregon versus USC next couple weeks to see who is number 3 in the Big Ten. Yep. Because Iowa plays Oregon, Oregon plays USC, and USC plays Iowa. Yep. It's going to be really fun. These last 4 weeks, November. It's not going to be very interesting for the top of the Big Ten, 1 and 2 in Ohio State and Indiana, but it is going to be very interesting. You can kind of throw Washington in there as well. They play Oregon, right? Do they play USC? I think they play USC as well, don't they? No, they don't play USC. That's weird. Oh, Washington does play Iowa, though. That's right. That's who I was thinking of. So Washington, you could kind of throw in there too. I don't know if they would be considered top. I don't know if they'd be considered number 3 because they do have that loss to Ohio State, and then who's the other one that Washington lost to? No, Iowa. USC plays Iowa. I apologize. USC plays Iowa, so not Washington. My bad. It's late. I'm gonna call it here. So appreciate you guys being here for the power rankings. I'm gonna get out of here, go make my performance tier rankings, and make a couple more videos on some wins. Ohio State, Illinois, Indiana. Definitely gonna do those. Might do Minnesota as well, but we'll see. So thanks for being here, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good one. We'll see you next time.